Shabbat Shalom. My tefillin are old and they're worn. They're also too small for me. When I get to the last part of the ritual, the part where I wrap the strap around my middle finger and around my hand, I have to make sure to do it nice and tight, otherwise that final bit of leather won't make it back to my palm where I can tuck it in and keep it comfortably secure. There are also some aesthetic issues. Every time I take the cover off my tefillin shel rosh, the tefillin that goes on top of my head, I laugh a little to myself because I'm reminded of the time when the paint started to chip away. Little flakes of black floating away from the wood, even when carefully unraveling the strap. And my brilliant solution was to go over the exposed naked wood with a black Sharpie, confident that nobody would be able to tell. You can tell. My tefillin are pretty beat up. They've been through a lot. I actually decided to buy myself a new set after graduating from rabbinical school, a way of giving myself a gift of completing rabbinical school. And even though that new set is perfect, it's a perfect size, it's beautiful in its craftsmanship, and overall much easier to take care of, I find myself every day opening my old velvet bag and pulling out my tattered and warped go-tos. And this Shabbat morning, I'd like to share with you why. Before meeting with the rabbinical school dean of admissions while I was finishing my graduate studies, I had wrapped tefillin only a couple of times in my life. And to be fair, I wasn't really the one doing the wrapping. Both times were at the Kotel, the Western Wall, and they were put on me by the Kotel Chabadniks, who seemed more concerned with me fulfilling the mitzvah than learning how to fulfill that mitzvah on my own, to do it myself. So they were the ones that wrapped the straps around my arms, and they were the ones who placed the batim on my head, and they were the ones that gave me a sheet of paper and guided me through the brachot. So when my admissions rep asked me if I wrapped tefillin every morning, I just kind of stammered for a while awkwardly, not quite sure what to say. But when he saw how anxious this question made me, he gently put his hand on my shoulder and he said, "Don't worry. Our Jewish journeys are unique, and they look different for each and every one of us. If you decide to apply to our school, let me know, and I will make sure that we find you an extra set in the synagogue when you visit." That one small sentence of understanding was what convinced me to interview at the Jewish Theological Seminary. I knew my Judaism wasn't, in my mind, up to snuff. I didn't grow up learning this stuff. I didn't go to day school, didn't go to camp, didn't attend a college with a Hillel. I never even had a bar mitzvah. But I cared about my ancestry. I cared about it deeply. I cared about my history, and I cared about how this difficult and esoteric tradition touched me so deeply and touches me so personally. My admissions rep was not really aware of this internal monologue that I was having. And I'm sure he went back to New York uncertain of whether he sold the school well or not. But within a couple of days, I learned that that didn't matter so much to him. Because that same week, on a Friday morning with Shabbat just on the horizon, I picked up a package at my Cambridge apartment, and inside was an old but beautiful set of tefillin. And lying on top of the velvet bag, a note embossed with the following words: "Dear Yoni, whether you decide to be a rabbi or not, these tefillin are for you to continue your journey. You are already wearing tefillin on your mind and on your heart. The set in this package is just a reminder of those straps which you have bound to your Jewish soul." Few things in my life have moved me the way that that note did. And few things have reinforced my commitment to my Judaism the way that beautiful gift has. Because I was allowed to undertake my journey at my own pace, with the blessings of a rabbi who saw potential rather than inadequacy. I have been able to breathe, to be the Jew and the rabbi that I am without embarrassment. And when I tether those beat-up old boxes to my arm and my head, I'm reminded of that blessing. I'm reminded that a Jewish journey requires authenticity, requires patience, and most of all, requires a belief in ourselves as worthy vessels of Hashem's love and covenant. This, my friends, is what the obligation of our commandments is all about. It is an affirmation, a way to connect the work of our souls and our hearts into a physical manifestation of ritual and commitment. When we wind tefillin around our arm, we do so that the bayit, the little house, points directly to our heart. And when we place the tefillin shel rosh on our heads, the bayit sits on the epicenter of our wisdom and our thoughtfulness. These small boxes are called batim because they are home to the words of Torah. And we attach them to our person because we too are a home to the words of Torah. Not a home that will someday be filled when we have learned enough, when we have committed our prayers to memory, when we can lead a Passover Seder, when we can keep and remember Shabbat fully and truly, or when we can read Hebrew fluently. But a home that is now filled with Torah, and a home that longs to grow, to overflow with goodness, with charity, and with learning. The Va-ethannan is a parasha of commitment. It is the parasha of the repetition of the Ten Commandments, the parasha of the Shema, that radical creed of Jewish monotheism that gives us the framework for tefillin and mezuzot. But it is also the parasha of patience. For the Shema emphasizes first and foremost love and learning, and then concludes with ritual. You shall love the Lord your God with all your heart, with all your soul, and with all your might. You shall teach these words to your children. They shall be on your lips when you're at rest in your home, when you are on your journey. They should be on your lips when you lay down at night, and they should be on your lips when you wake up in the morning. But the words that are to be on our lips throughout our respective journeys are not the entirety of the Torah. They aren't critical lines of Talmud or codes of Jewish law. They aren't the blessings of the Musaf Amidah, and they aren't the passages of Aramaic that make up Kaddish to Rabbanan. The words that are to be on our lips as we journey through this complexity of our lives form one important obligation, and that obligation is to listen. Shema Yisrael, listen, O Israel. Our God is Adonai, and our God is here for you. This parasha is given the name Va-ethannan, which means I asked, or I implored. But this Shabbat is given a different name. This Shabbat is called Shabbat Nachamu, to console, from the opening words of our Haftorah, which Ruthie read so beautifully. Nachamu, Nachamu Ami, console, console my people. If we put our Torah reading and our Haftorah together, then we have a Shabbat with the beautiful title of the Shabbat where we ask for comfort, where we implore for comfort. The Shabbat of comfort is meant to do just that, to comfort, to console. The words of our Torah portion today help to wrap the straps of our spiritual tefillin on our hearts and on our minds. They are words of hope, but they are also words of patience. Words of patience, words of understanding, words of validation. Because they ask us simply to hear and to learn, so that we as homes of Torah can fill our walls until the blessings of our lives burst through our doors and overflow into the world that surrounds us. The tefillin of our hearts and of our minds may be old, they may be tattered, and they might be colored with marker to hide the chips and the blemishes. But they are ours. They're our tefillin. They're made with love. They fit us just right. And despite what we may think, they're enough. Shabbat Shalom.